number 29. Does it say number 29?
Yes, 29, 5. Chapter 29, text 5.
Chapter 29, text 5. Okay, one more page. One more page. Buddhim, intelligence. To then, Pramadam, the young woman. Puranjani, Vidyat, one should know. Mama, my. Aham, I. Iti, thus. Yat Kritam, done by intelligence. Yam, which intelligence. Adistaya, taking shelter of. Dehi, in the body. Ashmin, this. Puman, the living entity. Bhunte, suffers and enjoys. Akashvi, by the senses. Gunan, the modes of material nature. Translation. The great sage Narada continued. The word Mada, mentioned in this regard, refers to material intelligence or ignorance. It is to be understood as such. When one takes shelter of this kind of intelligence, he identifies himself with the material body. Influenced by the consciousness of I and mine, he begins to enjoy and suffer through his senses. Thus, the living entity is entrapped. Srila Prabhupada's purport is Divine Grace. In material existence, so-called intelligence is actually ignorance. When intelligence is cleared up, it is called Buddha Yoga. In other words, when intelligence is dovetailed with the desires of Krishna, it is called Buddha Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. Therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, in the 10th chapter, Krishna says, Tesham satata yuktam ham bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam dhinamam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Real intelligence means linking with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When this is done, the Supreme Personality of Godhead from within gives one the real intelligence by which he can return home back to Godhead. Intelligence in the material world is described in this verse as pramada, because in material existence the living entity falsely claims things to be his. He thinks, I am the monarch of all I survey. This is ignorance. Actually, nothing belongs to him. Even the body and the senses do not belong to him, for they are given to him by the grace of the Lord to satisfy his different propensities through the material energy. Nothing actually belongs to the living entity. But he comes mad after everything, claiming, this is mine, and this is mine, and this is mine. Janasya mahoya maham mameti. This is called illusion. Again, nothing belongs to the living entity, but he claims that everything belongs to him. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommends that this false intelligence be purified. Cheto darpanamajanam. When the mirror of intelligence is polished, the real activities of the living entity begin. This means that when a person comes to the platform of Krishna consciousness, his real intelligence acts. At that time he knows that everything belongs to Krishna and nothing belongs to him. As long as one thinks that everything belongs to him, he is in material consciousness. And when he knows perfectly that everything belongs to Krishna, he is in Krishna consciousness. Om Megantavaranyasya Vinanjanan Shalakaya Chakshur Annanitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I can honestly say I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master is kindly opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto him again and again. Please make an offering, make a prayer. Please pray to Lord Krishna now. And what we have to say in this short discourse is only what we've heard from Guru, only what we've heard from Shastra. Without distortion, without any inappropriate motivation. We do this as an offering to the Lord. We're here to glorify the Lord. We hope to please Krishna by having this gathering to repeat his instructions. And if Krishna is pleased, everything else is accomplished. Just like watering the root of the tree satisfies all the branches and twigs and leaves. Whatever we need will be there. The intelligence, the determination, the inspiration to go on applying ourselves in the sacrifice of devotional service to Krishna will come from hearing. Faith comes by hearing. Inspiration comes by hearing from Guru and Krishna. So thousands of years ago, 5,000 years ago, there was a gathering of sages, saintly persons, wise, holy men, in the forest of Namasharanya. You know that? In the forest of Namasharanya. They came together. Why did they come together? Who knows? So, Prabhu, why did the sages gather at Namasharanya?
For the peace of the world. For the peace of the world.
Yes, they were concerned for the world. They saw that the world was disturbed and they wanted to, they were concerned about the onslaught of the age of Kali, an age of darkness and degradation and confusion and quarrel and hypocrisy was beginning. May Krishna continue to bless you with pure devotional service. So the sages were concerned about the people in the world. Similarly, we have a gathering here today in the Bhakti Center, temple room, this humble gathering of saintly, wise and holy persons, right? Are you concerned for the welfare of the people? Michael, are you concerned?
Yeah, concerned.
Dennis, are you concerned?
Yeah.
Deeply concerned? Yeah?
Yeah.
Shanti? Right, so Nikki is so concerned. Right? Really, we're aware of the fact that people are suffering and bewildered and their activities are misdirected and they're causing suffering to themselves and others. Right? So, out of concern, what did the sages do? What was their strategy? They were concerned about the oncoming storm, the dark age. Do you know what they did in the forest? Huh?
No, what did they do?
Okay, so they performed a sacrifice to counteract the terrible suffering of the people. And what kind of a sacrifice did they perform? You know what they did? They heard from the Srimad Bhagvatam. We're continuing that sacrifice this morning. It's a sacrifice. We're sacrificing our time, our attention, right? We want to hear how wonderful is Krishna. Simply by glorifying the Lord, it completely counteracts the materialistic atmosphere. It says that in this age of darkness, when people have lost their vision, they will get light from this Bhagavad Purana, from the Srimad Bhagavatam. It will help them to see the way things actually are. Krishna arranged to record the Srimad Bhagavatam. Shukadeva Goswami spoke the Srimad Bhagavatam, and then it was retold again in the forest of Naimisharanya. The sages said, "Okay, we can't get the fire started." I don't know if you've ever gone camping and had difficulty starting a fire. You've had that experience? Yeah? Right? Smoke, wet wood. You know, the atmosphere is so polluted, so the contamination was so intense that they couldn't get the sacrificial fire to flame up. So they decided to perform this sacrifice of this sound vibration. And people might minimize, misunderstand, completely disbelieve the fact that by Shabda Brahman, by spiritual sound vibration, something can be accomplished. In this age we use yantra instead of mantra. We use the machines to do things. But in former ages, they could even wage warfare with mantras. They could do all kinds of things with mantras. Very powerful. They could light the fire with a mantra, actually. So this sacrifice that we are continuing today as an offering to the Lord and for our own purification, we hope that it will benefit everyone. What we're doing in this room, and devotees all over the world are doing, when they open the books together and hear from the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's for the benefit of everyone. And at this time there are temples all over the world, so constantly someone is opening the pages, chanting, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. They're chanting the mantras, and they're hearing the instructions of the Lord and the glories of the Lord. And here we're talking about a person in the quality of consciousness that's called illusion. We're talking about a bewildered person, a person who can't see, that he's misusing his intelligence, and that he's acting inappropriately because he can't see what's right and what is truly correct. Appropriate actions. They're oblivious to what is appropriate action. They're an illusion. And all this, we trace it back to the main point, the title of the book, the real theme of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is, how wonderful is Krishna. Right? Please say that.
How wonderful is Krishna.
How wonderful is Krishna. That's what it comes down to, really. Sometimes we have an entire class and we forget to say that we're actually here to glorify Krishna, to appreciate the fact that all this, even illusion, is Krishna's perfect arrangement. He's allowing us to remain oblivious to his existence, if that's what we want, because he's allowing us free will. And without the love, without the option to love or not love, love is not really love. It's only some kind of coercion. So this Krishna is so wonderful that if we don't want, he will, he actually says he reserves the right to reveal himself to anyone and everyone. He does not, that's his prerogative. He does not always show himself if we don't want to see him, if we don't want to hear about him, if we don't want to understand his instructions. Apohanam, we are allowed. Krishna is so kind, takes such a humble position. Oh, you don't want me here? Okay. As far as you're concerned, I don't even exist. I'll just take a very low profile. So what's also recommended is here is that the mirror of the mind is polished. Prabhupada uses the word polished. If the mirror is covered with dirt and dust and there's some kind of something blocking our vision, we can't see clearly. People are in different degrees of confusion. Sometimes they're covered like a mirror is covered by dust, sometimes like smoke is covering a fire, or sometimes like a child is covered by the womb, completely invisible. People are under different degrees of contamination and their vision is in different degrees of clarity. But here it quotes, Chetudapana Majanam. All glories to the Sri Krishna Kirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years. Shrinatam Sugata Krishna Punyashravana Kirtana Radintastova Bhadrani Vidinoti Saritsatam. That the Supreme Lord, the Paramatma, in the heart of everyone, cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the person who relishes his messages. So we're hungry to hear this. We know we need it. We want to hear the glories of the Lord. We want to hear at least a little bit each day about Krishna. But it says, Satatam Kirtayanto Mam, that the great sages are always chanting the glories of the Lord. Whether directly by vocalization or indirectly, but also effectively, by pushing on some aspect of Lord Chaitanya's mission, to reach out to people, to care for people, to encourage people, to remind people, to rescue them from their bewildered condition. So we're taking the medicine. Do we have any questions or comments so far about this form of sacrifice, or realizations about how hearing is effective in changing consciousness? Yeah.
I have a question. I'm just wondering if there's a difference between time of the day when we are actually listening to Holy Scriptures. Does it make any difference?
He wants to know if there's a difference between the time of the day. In the Wild West, they say, ready, aim, fire, right? I was sharing recently that when I was in New Zealand, I had to go and stay overnight with some people who were signing some papers to allow us to purchase some land there for a preaching project. And in this particular house, there were 6 or 7 girls living there. They had an actual house in kind of the suburbs of Auckland. And it was really nice. Birds tweeting in the backyard, and it was a nice cozy house. And most of these girls worked as posties, male persons. And they were all living together there, like young people do, 20-somethings. And they, a lot of them had these big motorcycles. So in the morning, I had to go to a far distance. I stayed there overnight, and I got up in the morning and I took a bath and was chanting, and for almost 2 hours, and all of a sudden an alarm went off in the house. Somebody's alarm clock. Nobody else was up. All of a sudden there was stampeding this way, that way, toilets were flushing, showers were going off, people were scarfing down cups of I don't know what, and drinking, and and probably within about 10 minutes, they were out the door. Now, well, because the postman has to go on time, and they were all at jobs, And I actually felt like breaking down in tears. It was so horrible. So horrible to see people. There was like 6 girls there, get up and blast out the door within just a few minutes off to work, which is actually the way a lot of people live. You know, there goes the alarm clock. So I was thinking, our culture, and one of the things that impressed me about Krishna consciousness was that people rise early, bathe, pray, worship, study scripture together, come together, sit down, hear the Srimad Bhagavatam, and then there's perhaps some prasadam, and then the day's activities begin. If you just take your gun out of your holster and start shooting before you aim, what happens?
You shoot yourself.
You shoot yourself, you shoot somebody else, you're shooting along. So we say ready, aim, fire. So we're trying to focus what our intention is, what our situation is, what our, what pitfalls we might be facing, what challenges, what temptations, before we go stampeding into the activities of the day. So naturally we want to hear all day long. But it's probably a pretty good idea to figure out which way you're going before you start running, right? Isn't it? Is that a good answer? Okay.
Thank you.
I hope you never have to. I can't tell you, you can hear about it, but seeing it was just such a shock to me. It was so shocking. And they're, good morning, madam. And they were jolly and, intelligent, capable people in their own right. But it was just barbaric. It was just so raw to jump out of bed and practically onto your motorcycle. And the dust cleared and I was just sitting there like, oh my God, to be ripped out of sleep into fourth gear. It was horrible, as Prabhupada would say. Horrible. And in our contaminated condition, we actually think the idea of spiritual life was horrible. The idea of having a morning program was weird. I was thinking like that at one point when I heard first. But it's actually normal, sane, practical, effective. Good question. Any other questions? No hurry. It's a very radical verse for give us an orientation of what's appropriate. The verse says that nothing is mine. Nirmama means nothing is mine. Right? That's pretty wild. The body, the senses, we are stewards. We are caretakers of Krishna's property. And we want to use what Krishna has given us in the service of the real owner. My time, my day, my life, my happiness. The devotee doesn't think like Janasya mahoya maham mameti. It becomes embedded. And Maya is very dynamic. Devameeta Swami said sometimes we're thinking that the illusory energy, or sometimes devotees will think, well, I'll just go a little bit into Maya. Just a little, dip my toes in the water. Or maybe like a submarine. I will push the button and it will go down, and then I'll just push another pop right up. I'll come right back out of Maya. But no, Maya is entangling and progressive. This verse that Prabhupada spoke, Pungsam striyamattini bhavamitantayor adoja griha chacha tattavitaya janasya mahoya mahamameti. the Sanskrit verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, describing that there's a progression. Oh, I just need a little apartment. Oh, I could use a little bigger apartment. Oh, I could use a little land. I could use a better income. I will have children. I will have prestige. I will have, accoutrements of various. What's that lady in the Philippines who had 4,000 shoes? What's her name? I think she was the wife of the Prime Minister. What? Yes. Right. 4,000 pair of shoes. You got 2 feet, lady. Come on. What are you going to do with 4,000 shoes? People get like that. Another dress, another coat, another pair of shoes, another. Prabhupada said, every year you should think, let me take less and do more. That's normal and healthy. What do I really need? So there are things that increasingly entangle us, distract us, hold us back from going forward in spiritual life. So it's not that we can't think of using more in Krishna's service. That's okay if that's what Krishna wants you to do. But we never think that it's mine. This is Krishna's house. We have a little space, our little area for resting. And one of my godbrothers, Bhagavatam, wrote to show Prabhupada one time. He was really in distress and agitated. His mind was very agitated about his situation, his household affairs. And he showed me a letter Prabhupada wrote back to him and said, so, rise early, take bath, chant, worship Krishna, hear from scripture, and take some prasadam. And if there's some service to do, very nice. What do we need? A little place to take rest, and then do our service. We have our rounds, and we have our service. The Amish people, you know how they punish their children? They take their chores away. All right, you're bad. You've been bad. Now you will not be allowed to do your chores. They take their service away from them. Because they realize, to be able to do this is really a privilege. We're so lucky to have this to do. Right? We want to do it nicely. So we have our offering to the Lord. Whatever small service we do, we can do it as an offering to the Lord. Krishna says, I will accept even a leaf, a little water, a flower, if it's offered with love. If it's offered with love, I will accept that. Right? Amazing. The Supreme Lord of the universe can be pleased if whatever we have, we offer to Him with love. And I was reading again this verse from the Bible which says, if you have a quarrel with your godbrother, if there is dissension between yourself and another devotee, don't go to the altar to offer your gift. First, go and make peace with your brother, and then come and offer your gift to the altar. So Krishna is very pleased if we can somehow live with each other and work together without driving each other crazy. Prabhupada said that'll be one of the greatest austerities you'll have in this life, is to work together. For Krishna's pleasure. The great sage Narada continued, the word pramada mentioned in this regard refers to material intelligence or ignorance. It is to be understood that when one takes shelter of this kind of intelligence, he identifies himself with the material body, influenced by the material consciousness of I and mine. Janasya mahoya mahamameti. He begins to enjoy and suffer through his senses. Thus, the living entity is entrapped. We want to be free. We don't want to be entrapped. Thinking this is mine is what entraps us. Okay, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.